All right, everyone. The podcast is back. You've waited for it, and we have delivered once again. I am Matt. He is Jake. Say hello, Jake.
What's up?
All right, and we are the Cult Magazine podcast, and we are joined by a fabulous guest, a very talented, wonderful artist and musician, who is the author of the excellent book Gaza in My Phone. I would like everyone to welcome Mazen Kerbaj. Thank you for joining us, Mazen.
Thank you for having me.
So, just to jump right in, Mazen, this is a series of cartoons and comic strips that almost on it seems on a daily basis depicting the genocide and the atrocities taking place in Gaza. The first question I have for you is how did this really start coming into place with like putting this collection of work together around the uh, concept of the Gazan genocide, and how did you go about the process of making it almost it seems like you made one every single day for throughout 2023 and 2024.
Yeah, it went like the idea or the need to do it came very quickly. So the first drawing is done on the 9th of October 2023. So 2 days after, I hate to say the beginning because this idea that the 7th of October is the beginning of anything is a kind of a joke that is enforced on the whole world. But we will have time to talk about it. So like for me it was clear I have to react in a way, and this kind of reaction, probably also we will talk later about another book of mine called Beirut Won't Cry, and it was my reaction in 2006 to the Israeli war against Lebanon, where I was living back then in Beirut. So for me, it has like the first reaction is to get it out on paper, and the first very egoistic reason for this is a way to stay sane for me. Like when insanity becomes that big and that overwhelming, uh, be it something very trivial in my life, something very emotionally unbearable, I get it out on paper. This is a kind of almost nerdy reaction to anything since very young. So now I know with with experience and with time that I need this. So it took me until the ninth to be able to get out my first drawing because I was so overwhelmed the first 2 days by what is happening and so scared of what was to come. Like for us Lebanese and people from the region and people who have grown up dealing with Israel as our neighbor, and being in endless wars with them, we know what Israel is capable of without having any reason of doing anything. So without even like when they have one soldier that is captured, they can unleash hell on you for like we saw it in Gaza, in Lebanon, etc. So when the 7th of October happened, we were as shocked as, of course, everybody in the world, shocked that Hamas could have managed to do this and to go out and nobody thought this was believable. I think even Hamas themselves didn't think this was possible or believable. And we were shocked, but we were also so scared of what will we like we directly saw what this means for Israel towards the whole world. Like we have our 7th of October, like it was clearly, and they tried to portray it as an 11th of September, as because it was as the 11th of September a golden reason or a golden excuse to unleash whatever they want. But even then, I never thought we would be almost 2 years later still talking about it and it getting worse. But anyway, I mean, it was so big that for me directly, I knew I had to react in some way, and I knew we're in for a long time. So I didn't at all have any kind of a naive expectation that this will end soon. But again, I didn't know it will be that big. So I started drawing, and then it was not only one drawing a day. Sometimes it was up to 4 drawings a day. But then I would post them little by little to keep the momentum and to keep people. Very quickly, I learned with this war how to play, quote unquote, play with Instagram. Like it's better to put the four drawings in 4 consecutive days rather than put them together because I want each one of them to be as shared as possible and as viewed as possible, which I usually don't do for my drawings. I usually use Instagram. I just put a post. I kind of not care where it will go. Like I'm really a bad promotion manager of myself. But in this case, like you really know that you need to you like each drawing needs to reach the most possible people because the second reason why I do this thing. So the first reason is to keep sane, and the second reason is to it's a double reason. It's on the one hand to witness what's happening, to bear witness, and to raise awareness. So to counter the narrative. Back then, we didn't know it will be for 2 years that the narrative of the whole Western media and the whole traditional media would be totally pro-Israeli or anti-Palestinian or whatever you want to call it. But it
Yeah.
was clearly like to say things the reality as I was seeing it, and to put it out and to bear witness and yeah, to keep track of all this horror.
And
Right.
to your point, like for the longest time, it was all of traditional media was so insanely zealous for the Israeli side of things. And like on my end, I could think like I understand that like the attacks on the 7th of October, like atrocities occurred. Like it was a terrible thing to do.
Absolutely,
But
yeah.
but I remember like being in my like this office job I was in back then, and people were just so like for what Israel was doing on the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th of October. And I looked at them and I said, can you just go back like maybe 15 years before? Just go back to 2018, 2019. Like, see what was going on. And it doesn't justify the atrocities. None of
Hmm.
that does. There's no justification for the atrocity. But you can look at it and go like, what option do you think a group of people put in that situation would do? What would we do? Like, what would we do? Us Americans, gun toting, very bloodthirsty historically, and always like gnawing at the bit to get into a conflict with someone else. What would happen if to us if that happened here? We would be doing almost the exact same thing, if not worse. And I look at that in the American media particularly, and I have seen a shift. I have seen a shift minorly, but in the context of the historical like arc of the lens of painting Israel as a rose-colored glass state, it is very significant in my viewpoint that because it is people who are actually having not just pro-Palestinian voices but Israeli sort like voices who are going like, no, this is crazy, this is a genocide, like Amos Goldberg, like all of these like deeply entrenched experts on genocide are telling us this is what's happening. And when it comes to the idea of bearing witness, Richard Hoffman, a grad school professor of mine and a great memoirist, said exactly that. You need to bear witness for the time in which you are in, and if you are a creative. But my additional question is, how were you feeling emotionally when you were putting each drawing out there? Was there ever a moment where you were just like, yes, you were doing it to keep sane, but was there ever a moment where you just kind of felt like, I felt often a lot of despair, and I wasn't even like bearing witness directly to it, and I would just feel often despair. So I can't imagine like you feeling entrenched in that. So I'm just kind of like, what was kind of like your emotional navigation of going through that?
Yeah, it is it's really so complex emotionally. So on the one hand, there is bearing witness and when it works, like when the things are really getting hundreds, if not thousands or tens of thousands of shares, it puts you in also a position that I hate, where you feel you have a duty. You feel okay. I can express these things better than other people, people can share it, but I can create this thing that will be shared. So it's a double thing. I'm very happy to be in this position because it gives me more incentive to continue creating, but also it put on my shoulder a responsibility, especially for somebody like me who has always been and still is detached from everything. I mean, everything, all my work is very personal usually, and this, like all other works. So it's really the what's happening in Palestine through the eyes of Mazen Kerbaj. So I'm really showing you what you saw on video and what we all saw, but really filtered through my own sensibility.
Yep.
And I always have this idea that the more personal I do it, the more universal it becomes, because it's not anymore some cold news you see on TV or whatever. It's really through somebody alive who saw it like you, and this is why it touches you when you see it. So there is this thing, but then there is, because of the responsibility, there is this horrible thing that happens when I don't draw, where I feel I'm failing, I'm not doing this thing. So I go into depression when I'm not drawing. And then there is another level of depression, which is very perverse. I don't know how to say it, and it took me time to realize it in the war with Lebanon in 2006 in Lebanon. It is when I do a good drawing, when I do a good quote unquote good, like when I deem the drawing good, there is a kind of satisfaction that comes that is normal, like which is the satisfaction the artist has when he does a good work better than like whatever, so you have the idea, you never end up managing to do the idea exactly like you imagined, but sometimes it's better than you imagined or it goes somewhere else. And there is the satisfaction that the artist is looking for anyway. This is why we do our thing. And when this happens, it depresses me even more. Like, how the fuck can you get any satisfaction from doing a drawing about somebody a child who's in pieces now? So it's really very weird emotionally. If you do the drawing and you're happy with the drawing, and also if you get shares, like the more it has shares, I go and I check how many shares. Even if I say in my head, yeah, I'm happy because it's very good for the cause, but I know deep inside that there is this dopamine shit that is here also. Like I'm
Mm.
proud that it's getting shares, and this drives me crazy. Like the fact that even in this horror, my fucking brain is still looking for the dopamine in this depresses me even more than when I cannot draw. And I've been like this for 2 years now, and when now I'm talking about it, I feel even worse because I'm complaining. Like the levels of feeling bad in this thing. So complaining also feels like what the fuck are you talking about? People are getting burned, alive, and they're not eating and whatever. You're complaining because you're depressed because you're not drawing. So each time it's a roller coaster that is always going down. It never goes up. It's really terrible. But of course it's important to talk about it. When this was happening in Lebanon, on the other hand, there was one huge difference, and it took me time to understand. It was that I was under the bombs. So complaining was a total okay. Also having some humor and making fun of the situation was okay. Now, like making fun of the situation while I'm in Germany and they are in Gaza, it's a no-go. So so um, so it's really like seeing things, being helpless, seeing things from afar, and of course I'm not stupid. Again, I know that these drawings are important. I know that they are helping not only me but many people, because when they see them also, like the idea of seeing a drawing that touches you, and that you see the same news that you saw yesterday on your phone, then you see it transformed in something that 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 elevates it somehow because it touches you emotionally, etc. It makes you sad, but in a different way. I know it's good, so I continue doing it. But yeah, all this questioning, all this helplessness, all this like some days I say, okay, we have to bear witness. I have to bear witness. But like we are not wired to be able to continue. They are not wired to continue in Gaza, to live this. But we are not wired also to be able to continue living and having a normal life with this happening all day from the morning to night. Like when you wake up and manage to continue your day, you feel bad to be able to continue your day, but you have to do it. You have to bear witness. You have to say to the others what happened.
Mazen, that's really interesting to hear. I guess thinking about the expression of like atrocity and mass death is something that I do a lot. And well, for one, I mean, I guess what you just said about the expression of it bringing its own type of like excitement in a way is an interesting idea. Like um, the book the book Madame Bovary had like criticism around it is like it's this like really like hopeless book about I don't know, industrialization and the end of human value, and I guess thinking on that book, there's this idea that okay, well, he was actually able, Flaubert was actually able to write the book, even though it is hopeless. So the idea that it was written at all, in a way, is the hopeful part. And I guess I was interested in that idea of like um, the energy that you still get to do it, and while feeling hopeless in the midst of it. And it was interesting to hear you talk about that. I did want to talk to you about just the idea of expression or artistic expression of atrocity in general. And I think a couple of things you were saying earlier are really interesting to me, especially I guess feeling like we're in this new era of um, especially in the Middle East, anticipated atrocity, which is, I think, unprecedented in history. Where in the past, uh, I guess, as we express mass death, it has been a one-off thing, oftentimes, and the expression of it is this attempt to um, make a work that circles around this singular event that if you're uneducated on the problem, you would say that came out of nowhere. But if you take the time to look into it, it has a reason. But I guess in the Middle East, there is this idea, like you were talking about, if you are a neighbor with Israel, then you can anticipate atrocity almost every single day. If one thing goes wrong, it's like the place with the short fuse and all the bombs. And so I think your project fits really interestingly into this modern era in which we're no longer talking about making sense of the singular mass death. We're making sense of the state of continual chronic mass death that awaits us. And I think that your everyday approach to the book and it being a daily exercise, it feels much different than what mass or like what atrocity art was after in the past, because now that I think we've entered into a new state in which um, atrocity is no longer that singular event. Is, as I was saying, it's this thing that we can pretty much anticipate to happen forever. I'm wondering, were you thinking about that while you were putting this book together?
Uh, I like a lot this idea you say of atrocity being a single event, and I would add on it, and you hinted on it, but it's good to add it that it's usually a singular event that already happened. When we discover atrocity, usually historically, be it like let's take the worst atrocity we know from the 20th century, which is the Holocaust. Like we would hear or they would hear about something happening and they would not know how much it's true or not, and then when the atrocity was discovered, it was already finished, you know what I mean? So it's one event, or it's not an event, it's 4 years, but it becomes an event because it's talked about in the past, while here the atrocity is happening not only while we are speaking, now we are talking, but also, like you say, in anticipation. So it's atrocity in the present and in the future. You know you're going to sleep today and to wake up to even worse atrocities, which is also still like astonish me today, that still I am surprised by shit that is happening, and like it seems like 2023 was peanuts. You cannot believe that it can get worse still. I remember one drawing where I said every worse we believe it's the worst until the next worse. And like, okay, now they are killing people. Now as we speak, that they kill people who are waiting for food. Like also it became normal at some point that they bomb hospitals and they say there was a Hamas with no proof whatsoever, like Hamas command center. Now they don't even say why they kill them. They kill people waiting for food. You say it cannot get worse. Then 3 days later, we discover that they are putting in the fucking flowers like opiate, like medication with opium in it to make them addicted and more like the level of it going worse is the imagination and the perverse imagination of how can make it worse is by far the most horrible thing I ever imagined, and even it gets even worse when the people perpetrating it are the one who are saying we are like they are saying live. You go on their TikTok or not even you go on their real media or listen to their politician. They literally say we are doing a genocide, like an ethnic cleansing and the genocide. They don't use the word genocide, but it's crazy. Like the German at least was trying to hide it, back then, and then we discovered because the German, if they have one good thing, is they are bureaucrats. So
Yeah.
they wrote everything about it. But you discovered afterwards. But now the level of impunity gives them like this. How can we do even more and still get total impunity? And let's try it tomorrow. So yeah, living with it, living next to this happening is crazy. And yeah, drawing it is crazy. And I think the good thing with the book that was not with Instagram. I mean, it was in Instagram, but you never see it like this in Instagram. Is that in Instagram it's a daily thing and you see it coming like news, etc. But then when you put it in a book and you see the sum of it, when you put all this in a book, these 2 years in a book, and you can literally read them in half an hour or an hour, it's too much for you. Like you cannot believe this happened in
Right.
that period. If you see the two first months, you cannot believe this happened. Like
Right. I was I guess I'm interested in the because the way that we've experienced this genocide is also unprecedented too, with the use of social media and the 24-hour news cycle and this all these factors of media saturation combining and like at a peak in our life at this point, and the broadcasting of a genocide 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, has been really different, and I do think it has been influential, I guess, in the way that we understand and relate to genocide. Like you said earlier, there is this overwhelming effect, this bludgeoning effect. Every single person every day is given the awareness that the worst thing that they can ever imagine happening to a group of people is about to get worse. Like you are truly amazed by it every single day. Um, and I do think that there is something to be said about your art as it relates to maintaining the interest of those not in the trauma zone, those on the outside witnessing. And I think a huge part about that is the style. I think it is the centering of you as witness and the complications of a witness. And I do think there is something to be said about the personality and humor that exists within the work, which is miraculous almost. Like I was looking at one image earlier, and it's an image of like 10 or so babies and or illustrated cartoon babies, and you say something about like the amount of like hospitals that are shutting down and infant mortality, and you say like circle which 3 babies you think should die, and like that's like probably the darkest joke I've heard in my entire life, but it is in a way a joke, and it does give the reader the distance not to laugh but to contemplate, to like really see the issue not as a bludgeoning emotional force, but to understand the raw like gravity of it. That here are 10 children, pick 5 of them, and then in that way, in that depersonalization of the issue, we're actually gained greater personal access to it, which I think is pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it was a row of 3 columns of 18 babies swaddled in garments, and it's called the Maternity Ward Competition. The Al Shifa hospital ran out of fuel and had to switch off all its machines, including the incubators. Which of these babies will die last? It's when I read that, and before that there is an image where it is the quote of a father asking where his murdered son's head is. just where is his head, where is his head, where is his head, where you have a kind of like a boxy torso with a box of where an empty head would be inserted, or where a head would be inserted. And like there is a very, very, very kind of like gallows humor about it, and it almost lends itself to the art form of a cartoonism, or like of being a cartoonist, because it implies there's some degree of like humor in there, and trying to create humor out of that. Yes, one can like recognize the humor in that, but it also right afterwards gives me the sick, knotted, twisting feeling in my stomach that I even had the capacity to laugh at that, which I feel, in my opinion, because this book, as you said, this book is written for white people. Like, this book is written for white people. And I feel like from someone who comes from a place of privilege, like myself, who was born in an empire, a bloodthirsty empire, that to even have me express this level of humor or react in a humorous fashion is thus another showcasing of my privilege and of my personal benefit of being in this genocidal facilitator, which that is the United States. And I feel like that needs to then it should compel people to have more of a conversation with themselves. That they should wrestle with their souls. They should wrestle with, I mean, the term Israel in Hebrew literally means one who wrestles with the angels. Like, you got to wrestle with your own demons too.
Mhm.
And like, you have to, Israel, you have to wrestle with yourself when it comes to this. You got to wrestle in the tent. And yeah, that was a great point you brought up, Jake. But I don't really know if I had a question about that. I just wanted to comment on that.
No, I like a lot. First of all, I have to say we are all the privileged of somebody. So yeah, I could find many ways in which I am privileged. Maybe less than being from the empire, but who knows? Sometimes being far from the empire give you some privilege also.
Maybe.
At least the privilege of growing up knowing that this is an empire, that you should fight. You see it from the outside, it's easier.
No, don't go over there.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I think humor. I mean, it's always has always. First of all, I'm somebody who well, I grew up like just quickly. Like I was born in '75, and '75 was the beginning of the civil war in Beirut. So I grew up, yeah, for 15 years in civil wars, and we had many wars, etc. But I'm somebody who likes a good laugh rather than who would like to laugh about it rather than cry over it. And this is how I laugh, and I have a very dark humor, I guess, because of living all this. But so this is my natural thing. But also with time, I discovered, first of all, it's so much more difficult to make somebody laugh than to make somebody cry, be it in movies, in whatever. It's so easy to have, movies like, and for me, I love very good movies and auteur movies, but also I'm a sucker for any like when I have to cry in a Hollywood movie with the violins, I cry, like so they do it very well. But making somebody laugh, like it's really, really rare. Like these stand-up comedians, like when I think of America, for instance, maybe George Carlin would be one of the rare who really makes me really laugh, because he is very dark also. So it's difficult to make somebody laugh, and when you make somebody laugh about something that is horrible, it's as you suggested, it makes you much more re-questioning first of it what it is, and the fact of making it laughable and the fact that you laughed about it makes you relate to it. It's not anymore them and us. If I'm making you laugh, we're talking the same language. And like, what the fuck? How could you do this? And you get somehow happy because you laughed, but angry against yourself because you laughed. So I think humor in this sense is much. It's especially dark humor is really, and it has always been like dark humor, authors with dark humor, like really talking about life and death and whatever, but making you laugh about it, or horrors. Yeah, it always has a very incredible place. Like it goes to you in a very different way that I don't know how to explain. But I'm like you. Like when I read things where the author is talking about the most horrible things, and then brings you a smile, and in the same time a guilt of being, of being smiling. I think it works great. Um, like lately, I was reading Charles Bukowski. I guess this is the kind of author who can make you laugh about the most horrible. If somebody tells you really this about a man, you want to not to kill him because I'm not violent, but maybe to jail him forever. But the way he puts them, it makes you laugh, and then it shows you how horrible it is. But also to go back to another thing that Jake said that is very interesting, it's the style of the drawing. Um, I'm more and more realizing, like why, because I've been asked many times, why do you think the drawings go that deep, and touch people differently? I think that when you see a movie, footage of somebody being dismembered, or this guy, this journalist burned in his tent, or photos of kids dismembered, etc. Like your gut feeling is to look away, like something in you say, look away, don't look at this, but you still look because you want to know and you want to bear witness. You almost force yourself to look, or even you look with this perverse attraction to atrocities that we all have deep inside in ourselves as human beings. When you hear about somebody's death, you're sad, but or when you see an accident on the road, or when you see a horror movie, as simply as that, like you want to go for it. Wh- While my drawings are mostly in this very cartoonish thing, and your brain is wired to go for it directly, like to be sucked into something like this. So how you go for the drawing is really with full confidence. You're giving yourself to it. It cannot harm you. It's so round, with big noses, big eyes, etc. And then you read the news, and then you see the whole, like you see the horror. It imprints in your head in a very different way. I couldn't say how, but I'm sure it imprints in your head the whole thing in a very different way than a dismembered kid that was directly remembered by another dismembered kid, more horribly dismembered the second day and then the third day, and the bad news that are so, resembling each other erases each other. And I play a lot on this, and so it's funny you took this one of the maternity word. It's a trick, if you want, if I may use this word, that I use often, and I used in Beirut Won't Cry. I also use without even noticing, like, but later on by talking about these things, this trick of doing it as if it was a game, So I'm even topping on the humoristic drawing. I'm making it as if it's this games these things you find in newspapers and in game books. I remember a drawing I did in about another bombing of Gaza, like years ago, where I show a city and then I show full rubble, like the other picture, and I say spot the 10,786 differences between these two photos of the same city. It's again this game, where you have spot the seven differences, and then there is one character who has a different eye or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's taking this language that we are so used, and it's so dull, and so stupid, so not, like nobody plays these things anymore. It's like for when we were kids, and even for kids from today, it's very old-fashioned. So taking this language and then fitting something so horrible in it, this is what speaks to you directly, I think, and it's very efficient. It makes it so efficient, in touching you directly.
Right.
Perfect. Yeah. Jake, you ask your question. We edit all this stuff out. But I actually have to let my wife into the house. She locked herself out. So
Good, good to
I'll be
know.
right back. Go ahead. You
All right,
two.
all
I'll be
right.
back in
Okay.
like 2 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I was. I mean, it's interesting that you bring up film, because I was thinking about this book, and as well as like some other films that deal directly with atrocity, and I think the one that I kept thinking about was Hiroshima Mon Amour. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And um, I think like what we're talking about here is like a similar idea in that book, is like you have to find a way to allow the viewer or the reader access to something different than the like raw horror of it. So like Hiroshima and Amora, you have this couple and they're talking, and you slowly begin to realize that the woman, the love interest, is a representation of someone's like longing for a city that is gone, and so, but you're kind of like tiptoed to it in the same way that like this book allows you to sort of breeze through it without having to actually look at people being melted and dismembered, because I mean, in the back of everyone's mind, that knowledge and that data already exists, but you have to somehow, I guess, I think, effectively bear witness or effectively convey this thing to other people, is get them to think about it on terms that they can actually understand beyond horror. And I don't mean it in like a Schindler's List type of way that you make like a soap opera out of Atrocity, but I mean it in a way of like contemplating like you as a person, what is really lost when mass death comes to your life, and how do you actually process that as a human, and how do you reconcile that with this idea of humanity that we all entertain with ourselves, and how to and I think if you can get people starting to think like that, if you can kind of like you kind of have to like trick them into doing it, and I think this book does it in a really effective way, um, while also like really not like um, while not doing any like kind of like avant-garde bullshit. Like it is very like of the moment, and still effectively allows people the space to contemplate. And yeah, so it's very interesting to see um, it happen in within this context. I mean, the simple act of like expressing the here and now for me is terrifying. I wouldn't even like I wouldn't even like write about a conversation I had with like my mom like a week ago. I would be like, that was too soon. um,
Yeah. The crazy thing is nowadays, not even you talk about it, you publish it in the here and now. Like I see the news this morning, I draw it by night. It's online. So it's crazy how nowadays the here and now is so volatile and yeah, so,
right.
so incredible and so usable somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I cut you. You were like,
No, no,
I
no.
don't know if you're.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I really like your your use of two movies, Hiroshima, Mon Amour, and Schindler's List in the same in the same argument. They are both, and specifically Schindler's List. They are both movies I often use to say this is a good movie and this is a bad movie. Schindler's List is for me my perfect example when I want to say to somebody, they say, yeah, but this movie, like they say about a movie, yeah, it was a nice movie. I said, no, it's not, badly written or whatever. Yeah, but it's based on a true story. This is where I get Schindler's List out of
Right,
my
right.
pocket, and I start bitching about Schindler's List. And I
Yeah.
remember, like, the bad people are so like the German. Of course, they are bad people. They are so bad, it's so pushed. And once I was talking with my daughters about cinema. I see movies with them a lot, and I told them about this writer who wrote a review about Schindler's List in France back when it was out, and he finishes the thing. So he destroys the movies of the movie, obviously, and he ends with saying, "It's not enough to do a real story to make it believable. Like a real story, true story is something, and the believable story is something else, be it fiction or whatever. So how to make a story believable in a movie is the most important. And to go back to this, I find art like art can do you use the word to sublimate something, like to make it more sublime, or because sometimes I translate words from French. I'm not sure they work. So art can sublimate everything, and it's rare. Like there are rare the artists. Not I'm not talking about myself here, of course, obviously, but there are rare the artists that manage to talk like there are some singers. Leo Ferré in France comes to mind. He mostly talk about depressing things. Like everything he talks about is depressing. It's never joyful. Or there is this Syrian poet Muhammad al Mahout, fantastic, who's dead now, a modern poet. He has this poetry book called "Joy is Not My Craft," and everything he says is depressing. But and the funny thing, I'm talking once with a friend. He say, "Yes, these things are too depressing for me." Say, for me too. This is why I read them when I'm depressed. So instead of when you are depressed to try to rejoice yourself because it doesn't work, you go and you find somebody who is as depressed as you, but who can manage to do something,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so rewarding when you understand it, when you go in it, like it's a piece of work, that be it a movie, be it a novel, be it a song, be it whatever. And the more the thing is horrible, the more it's difficult to get it to get it to a place where it is. I don't want to say digestible because it's an awful word, but to just to make the image to digestible by the audience. So it's something they don't want to read about, like they are already seeing the news on their phone every day. But if you can get them and then like they are reading something horrible and they want to know this and to bear witness, but they are also getting a reward of reading it. And this is the crazy thing with art. And probably this is the crazy thing that drives me crazy. Is that what I do when I do a drawing and feel good about doing a good drawing, and I feel bad of doing feeling good. But this is the force of art, and like the fact of making you just read something totally horrible, be it real or fiction, totally horrible, but then at the end you got a reward from this reading, and this is fantastic. So I think this is of course, again, I'm not saying, I'm hinting on what you said, and from my experience with other people's work, I'm definitely not saying my work manages to do this, but this is my aim somehow. So I never think anyway how the audience will receive it. I have to do it to convince myself and surprise myself first, and then the audience, yeah, does whatever it wants with it.
and and kind of talking about like how the audience not consumes, like there's like digest and consumes, but that just
Yeah,
sounds
yeah, yeah.
so,
It's
sounds so
awful, these words,
capitalist,
but
right?
you understand what you're talking about. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
how they
And if you
exploit
take
that.
other words like to appreciate, it's also weird. Like all these words are weird to say. What do you do with art? You know what? Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And my other question would be kind of like, how do you feel? Because I wrote a essay called Aaron Bushnell and the Trauma Protest, which
Mm-hmm.
gives a very uses the Aaron Bushnell self-immolation, where he was an Air Force member and set himself on fire and killed himself out of protest of the Gazan genocide in front of the Israeli embassy in Washington D.C. in February of last year. And I use it as kind of like a flashpoint to talk not only about like the self-immolation itself, but also the Israeli-Palestine conflict, the genocide happening. And one of the comments that I have, and I feel like my opinions are kind of evolving on this, but one of my first opinions that I said was that there were people that were taking artistic renditions of Aaron Bushnell's self-immolation. One artist named Zabara, I think his name was, and he put it on social media where instead of fire riding up Aaron Bushnell's back, it was flowers, and it said, "There is no fire in heaven." And like, I said, like, that's an effective and kind of cool concept, and like I can understand why he does that, but I feel like when we see atrocity and when we live in an era where the video evidence of the atrocity or the horror of one's willingness to go to such lengths to protest such atrocity and genocide, to render it in an artistic setting for people who are of a privilege like myself, I feel would ultimately mean that, like, while well intentioned, is ultimately comes across, it can make maybe even the artist feel hollow. And I was wondering how you feel about that, because in my opinion, I feel like the point that I make in the essay is that I really do think that, and I do this when I see a video of a child screaming without who's missing his arms or their arms while bombs are dropping around them, I refuse to scroll up. I watch the entirety of that video because I feel that I need, like I did with the Aaron Bushnell video, to sit with it and let it traumatize me. Let it do the thing that it should do to my face, to my age, to my soul, because then I feel like in order for there to be like some sort of artistic renditioning, then I feel like I can come at it as a consumer or as an appreciator of art more honestly. And I was wondering how you felt about that within your own process and how you possibly feel about that generally. I know that was a lot.
No, no, it's not. It's great that you're talking about this because I drew him, and I didn't post this drawing. And this moment was it's very interesting. It's the first time actually I'm doing an interview with Americans, so it's great that you get this out because nobody asked about it in Europe like this. Aaron Bushnell was kind of detailed because of course for 1 week everybody talked about it, but then it went, he disappeared. I drawed I drawed him on fire and was finding a way to also make it personal. So first, before going there, like it's the fact that you say I have to be traumatized by it is I totally agree. The guy did it for you to be traumatized, and for me, just even people who say rest in peace, Aaron, like, well, what the fuck? The guy burned himself to die. Where which peace will he ever rest in? So yeah, I mean, I find it very this cute art. I cannot, like it's like the situation is so if you want to make it cute, you have to be uh, self-conscious. You are doing something cute and fuck it up. You cannot be cute while what's happening is happening. And Aaron Bushnell, you cannot make it more artistic than what he did. You know what I do? You know what I mean? His video is the most horrific, the most self-explanatory, the most artistic. You cannot depict it better than the video, the most traumatizing, which was the aim, by the way, ever. So you cannot touch it somehow. And if you want to touch it, you have to make it again something to make it again something personal. Again, like I do with whatever, like when I say like this video of this boy burning or whatever that we all saw when I'm drawing it or redoing it, I'm saying clearly what this did to me, So and so I'm reappropriating the thing to be able to digest it and throw it back at you. With Aaron Bushnell, I couldn't do this, so I drew him, and I wanted to put, and two things stopped me, and it was a very like this moment was the moment where I started drawing much less. So more than three-quarter of the drawings are made in 2023 and beginning 24. And then from this period on, I was doing one drawing every week, then every month, etc. So the last drawings were done. Yeah, I mean, more than two-thirds of the book are done in the first year, in the first 3 months. Like I was really frenetically drawing. So I couldn't transform it for two things. One, because it was I couldn't find the tonality, and it happens many times with many other things. But I couldn't find the tonality. Neither could I condemn him because he is killing himself. This drives me crazy. By the way, people who say, "Yeah, he killed himself. He was a coward." I say, "What the fuck?" Like for me, killing yourself, you must be the most courageous man
He
on
set
in
himself
the
on
world.
fire.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, but anyway, about any suicidal person, like there is already this very Christian and I guess Jewish and Muslim, like in this monotheistic, maybe in other religion also. People always say, yeah, he's a coward, like he killed himself. He doesn't have, or because it goes against God's will,
Yeah.
like all this bullshit. So already people who are committing suicide in our societies, they are always looked at really weirdly. Like they always say in front. I remember when we were kids, if somebody commits suicide, yes, he was crazy, like you must be out of your mind. And for me, like it's the most sane thing to do since ever, not now. I mean, like life is so hardcore, you know. So it's just like, oh wow, he managed to do it. He managed to convince himself, and also the level of sadness and of despair you have to arrive to do it. And I open a parenthesis here about suicide bombing, like because people also always talk a lot like how can you imagine like bombing yourself and killing innocents? Or I say, yeah, it's awful to kill innocents. It's terrible. But do you imagine like not one person, so many suicide bomber in Palestine? I'm not talking even about this Islamist religious fanatics, but in Palestine and in Lebanon, the first people who made suicide attacks against Israeli soldiers where communists were total atheists, like they don't have any belief that they are going to any paradise with any virgin. But they do it. Like imagine the level of despair where your only weapon is to go kill yourself to be able to kill somebody. So you always have to put yourself, in everybody's mind. And with Aaron Bushnell, like I was in awe, and I don't want, because he's dead at the end of the day, I don't want to glorify his death. And it was a very weird moment for me. And the other thing was, it was the first moment in all this war, and since there were many other moments, the last one being the musicians, what's their name, who were singing "Death to the IDF,"
Bob
in
Villain.
yeah, yeah. So Aaron Bushnell was the first moment where I realized how much the media can go one way. Of course, they are talking about this guy who killed himself for Palestine, but at the end of the day, it becomes about this guy, So people were continuing to get murdered as much in Gaza, if not more, or whatever. Like nothing is changing there. But now the whole problem was Aaron Bushnell. Was he right? Was he not right? And this was the first moment. Since then, of course, there is Greta Thunberg going to Israel with the flotilla. There is whenever there happens something here, or now and don't get me wrong, I'm totally with raising awareness, so like and going straight, like doing what Greta Thunberg. They say, yeah, it's egocentric. Yeah, fine, it's egocentric. Go do it, you too, also, if you want some ego boost.
Yeah, how about
So
you get on the flotilla?
yeah, yeah. So yeah, they want the selfie flotilla. Like, shut up, just shut up, So, so I'm totally full on with everybody who can do whatever, and killing yourself if it's your only way to resisting. Fine, just do it. It's great. But also the media is so perverted, and the politicians and whatever, that this becomes for 1 week almost a smoke to what is happening in Gaza. So instead of raising awareness, it takes our eyes out of it, and this is so pernicious. So when this happened with Aaron Bushnell, like it really, like I felt I couldn't continue this drawing. I couldn't. I It's funny, one day, remember me, like when I would be back in Berlin, I send you pictures because I did many. It's him burning, you would recognize directly. Also, I wanted to do it at some point, like the drawing about this fucking security guard who comes to him. You have a guy burning in front of you, and you say, "Get on your knees with your gun." You say, "This shows you the level of craziness people are in. Get on your knees," and he's shouting on your knees, and the guy is shouting, "Free Palestine," and burning. You know, he at no point he thinks like, let's try to get him out. This is insane. This tells you like the level of hatred, of paranoia, and of whatever we are living in nowadays. So yeah, Aaron Bushnell was the moment I remember very well, for various reasons. Poor Aaron. Yeah. Or lucky
Um,
Aaron. I don't know what to say. Yeah, I don't know what to say in this.
uh, I do I want I think you brought up a couple interesting points, I guess, in terms of how any of this shit is dealt with in terms of Western media and some of the tendencies that we encounter that soften and distract the blow of anything impactful. And I think your book fits into this context really interestingly. And I think the thing Matt brought up earlier that we were talking about was this kind of like neoliberal tendency to infantilize any like inkling of progressivism, and take away the actual bite of it. So like making a fucking cartoon or a painting of Bushnell with flowers on them and putting some like soft little phrase over it, like "in heaven you'll be okay," like like and then on the other end it gets turned into a talking point, to the point where you're no longer talking about the thing, why he did it. You're talking about what he did, and if it's justifiable. And so and in that way the thing itself gets nullified every single time, where it's like, okay, like the actual raw product of it can only be presented to us in this like Disneyified way, and the information that would have been conveyed by it is now distracted by the fucking like the takes that everyone has to make on it. Like, was this like the correct thing to do? And when we mistake that for like journalism, and we mistake that for writing, or like even just like intellectual activity, where in fact it's just like comment, like equivalent of like commenting on like an Instagram post. But I think your book, returning to your book, is interesting, dude, because it is also dealing with all of this. I mean, um, specifically the idea of infantilization, these are cartoons. These are like soft images of children with big eyes that could almost be mistaken for a Disney character once in a while. Um, Yet you're not pulled away from it. And so I think in a way this book is also at great play with this infantilizing force that exists around every atrocity within, call it neoliberal media, and it's like all its attempts to rid the viewer of it. And I think it's that mechanism that you see all the time is first you infantilize it and then you distract it and then it's gone. And I think what your book is doing is making work with both those tendencies as we encounter them.
Yeah. Using the weapons of the enemy is a very good technique.
Right,
Usually,
right.
using the language of the enemy and the weapons of the enemy. Yeah. I mean, if you take it really from an analysis purely intellectual, what I'm doing is pure propaganda. Like I'm using I'm using the if you want the mechanism of the propaganda. So a drawing that is very attractive, slogan that is very like stays in your mind and go directly. I'm not at all like in other of my works like comics. Most of my comic work like more how to say. First of all, more experimental in the drawing and less cartoonish, less round, less cute, if you want. And second of all, more contemplative in the saying, more poetic, more, taking your time and not being clear. And what did he mean by that? And, like really the opposite of here, where each page or most of the pages are really could be, and it was meant that way. Like I encouraged from the beginning people to print them and stick them on the walls. So it was really designed as many posters as there are drawings. Like just go and put it. And for me, this was of course very important. So it's important to use this, and I knew I'm doing them for Instagram first, and I knew I want to talk to the whole world. This is my first ever book that is done fully in English. Even the Beirut Won't Cry, it was like half English, half French, half or third Arabic, and it was really like how the drawing was coming to me, what the idea in which language. And sometimes I would make an effort and say, this page, do it in English, then you can talk directly to the whole world. It's the franca, like English these days. And so this is the first book that I obviously did for Instagram and with English, and I knew it had to be shareable, and I did it in the format of Instagram. So like after 2-3 drawings, I started doing this 25 by 20 to make it the most shareable and the least in need of any how do you call it, caption under it. So I would put them, sometimes I would put the date, and this anecdotically I didn't think of it like that, but this made them totally mostly uncensored and on shadow banned. It's crazy. Many people said, but how you weren't censored on Meta and you're still not censored on Meta and Facebook and whatever. And it took me time to understand. It's because the algorithm is fucking stupid. They see cartoons like Disney, and since all the words are written in the cartoon, they are not. There's nothing. These people, when you want to write Israel, you write $1 for the S, and then you put a hashtag and whatever. So the algorithm doesn't read Israel and ban you. Or if you want to put terrorist or genocide or whatever, I could use all these words because it's written in ink on paper, and then the algorithm sees a fucking cartoon. So I was navigating under the radar and still am. They just see a cartoon and they don't even analyze it. Like it's even if there is something in it, it's not worth it to go. It's a fucking cartoon. It's
Right.
how do you say, harmless. So
Right.
this also I play on this. Like I play on it. I didn't know I'm playing on it with the censorship, but I play on it as we talked about it before with the reader. Like hey, I'm giving you something inoffensive, and then bam, it explodes in your head. But the algorithm, yeah, it doesn't have time for it to explode in it. It's just yes, no, yes, no. So it's a yes. So far, it has been a yes, and it's interesting. And to take all this, so again, it joins what you are saying about infantilization. Of course, we are infantilized in every way, and not only in the media, even in the good media, if you want. But when you think of social media, the most alarming thing in social media is like me and probably both of you, we do not see any news coming from the extreme right or from Israel, but when it is relayed by somebody from our side, so we see only the news that we want to see, and them also, so it's crazy. And if you compare it to 20 years ago with newspapers, of course, if you buy this extreme right newspaper, you'll have only the news of the extreme right. But when you go to a fucking newsstand, you have all the newspapers, and then you choose to take this one. You know what I mean? But you could choose to take this one and also the communist one, and then make an idea. But here we do not have access to this. We see Israeli soldiers on TikTok because somebody on our side shares them, and then it becomes. So this is part of the infantilization. It's like really reassuring you, and now with ChatGPT, it's going even worse and worse and worse, reassuring you in your certainties. And this is the worst thing. Like removing doubt is the worst thing you could do to humanity. This is the fucking thing we thrive on since ever, and this is what makes us advance. And we don't have this anymore. Plus, the media make everything entertainment, so it's more and more infantilization, and it's insane to realize that we are after like the American empire is the best propaganda tool that ever happened in the world. That is called Hollywood, and Hollywood was copying the American way of life and pushing it, in more like American dream and whatever, and pushing it on us. And then now the whole circle is the whole loop is looped when we are living like in a movie now, instead of the movie doing like real life and pushed a little bit with, now we are living in a fucking movie. And it started in 11th September. I remember 2001. A friend of mine told me, like, I was in Beirut, at work, and then he said, "Did you hear the news?" I said, "No." He said, "Put on your TV." I say, "Which channel?" He say, "It doesn't matter. Just put your TV on." And it was insane. And I put my TV on, and I see. So of course it was horrible. We all saw the news, but since the beginning, it's like America under attack. It's like in a fucking movie, like a fucking catastrophe movie that I saw hundreds of them since I am kid. So the language was the same language, the semantics and the way you're with us or against us. We're going to get them dead or alive with George Bush talking.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was crazy that this and it was crazy to see that. Okay, this is how it works in America for real. Now they are really living in a movie. And today I realize that we are all living in a movie. So the propaganda is so powerful that the whole empire now is about entertainment. And this idea about Greta Thunberg like becoming the news or Aaron Bouchard or whatever is entertainment, we can talk about and everybody can comment on. And whenever something like this happens, all politicians comment on, while they do not comment on the massacres happening every day, or so we are really living in a big show
Yeah.
that is not funny, and it could be funny if it wasn't tragic, but also in a full-on dystopia that seems written by very bad writers. So, like it's in a movie. This dystopia we are living in a movie. It would sound unbelievable. Like, come on. The whole world is not saying anything. Like the whole media in the whole Western world is saying, okay, for 2 years, no, it wouldn't happen. It's really scary
Yeah.
how bad
Yeah.
it turns. And
Yeah.
so how quickly.
Israel's got way too much plot armor here. It seems that's unbelievable that the whole
But
world would.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Like
yeah.
everybody has for the last 2 years gone, oh yeah, they just gotta do what they gotta do. They gotta finish the job. I'm like, what's the
Yeah, yeah,
job? Like,
yeah,
what's
yeah,
the
yeah. What's the
fucking
job?
job?
They are fighting for us. No, there is this other thing now in Europe. Like they are doing the dirty job for us. The fucking German chancellor. What dirty job? What are you talking about? Like bombing Iran is the dirty job. What the fuck are you
Yeah.
talking about? Why were you afraid of Iran anyway? But it's crazy how much, yeah, like even me, who's really very aware of Zionism, aware of everything since very long, and aware of the entanglement of America and the APAC and the politics, and very aware of Germany and the Holocaust and how they cannot be, critical. Even me, I never would have imagined the whole world would align for so long. The first months, I say, okay, the first 2 months, okay, they are in shock. Okay, they know Israel needs to get its revenge, because there is no end to this war. There is no winning this war. We all know, unless they really get rid of the 2 million, which they are trying to do.
Yeah.
But it doesn't go as fast as they would want. So I wouldn't believe 2 years ago that we would be almost 2 years into the genocide. Nobody, like Macron 3 months ago, he said, I might recognize Palestine in June, in 3 months. Like this was the closest he came to criticize, and then he chickened out because he was accused to be anti-Semite. Like it's really funny, it's so tragic, but it's really funny. I cannot believe we are there, and the world is so gullible or so governed by fear, by money, by interest, by whatever, by power, that it's okay. They are burning everything. All this idea of free speech, all this idea of we made the international court for justice to bring people, dictators and all these things. They are wiping their ass with, on TV,
Yeah.
and saying it's okay. It's okay. It's Israel. It's okay.
And it just goes to show that empire is not ever going to follow its own self-constructed moral systems
Yeah,
if
yeah,
it goes against their interests
yeah.
and or against their perceived interests, because ultimately this is the litmus test for I believe the Western world's moral compass. And I think that we are at an hour and 8 minutes, but I would like to ask you one last question, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
My last question has to do with the afterword of your book.
Mm-hmm.
As I said before, like, I remember feeling the fear of the DC sniper attacks because there were shootings that took place 10, 15 minutes down the road from me. I remember the fear I felt at 9/11, but of course, nowhere near the fear that I felt that anyone would feel, not me, but the fear that anyone would feel during the Israeli war against Lebanon in 2006, where particularly with the bombing of Beirut, which you lived through. And I was going through your afterword, and I resonated deeply with your growth on how your initial propagandized and indoctrinated view of Palestinians changed immeasurably once you got exposed to not only differing viewpoints but to like Palestinians and Muslims themselves. And on my end, to preface, to give a little bit of like what I went through, like I grew up in a Catholic household. My parents are very like they're actually rather progressive for their time. They gave me a Catholic education, and what I found in that Catholic education was just rampant homophobia. And I ended up being quite homophobic until I was around like 14, 15 years old, having not known it. And then I ended up deciding, because they had cute girls in the drama department, I decided, well, why don't I just try out for Godspell, the Broadway show. And I got in, and it completely shifted my perspective on not just like gay people or people in the LGBTQ community, but marginalized groups in general. So, my question to you to kind of like summate all of that is, do you believe that art and artistry and having an artistic community was instrumental in the driving force of what changed your perspective of the Palestinians in general?
Yeah, it might be, but first let me start by saying I know many artists who are assholes. So so let's not too many. So let's not go there. let's not let's not make them. Yeah, let's give them the benefits of the doubt. Let's say.
Sure.
Yeah, this afterwards, it took me so long also to write. I didn't know how to start writing it. In the first, we were trying to find somebody to write an introduction, and we talked about Joe Sacco, but then Joe wrote already for Beirut Won't Cry. We were talking about, I was proposing some people to the publisher, and then at some point I say, I'm going to fucking write it. Like, I never do this usually. And the fact is, on the 7th of October 2023, actually on the 5th of October 2023, I was in Ljubljana in Slovenia doing a mural on a 14-meter wall. They asked me, like they commissioned me festival, and I was there. And the mural was a drawing that I did for Gaza years before, in 2008. And it portrays a boy, and it's written in 4 frames, and it's written, in Gaza there is a boy standing and waiting to go to sleep. And the last one it's still the same boy, but his tongue is out and his eyes are X's. So you understood he died, he was killed. And I was doing it, and I finished it on the 7th of October 2023. So when we received the first news from what was happening, like Hamas breaking the blockade and going and massacres happening, etc. I was finishing this drawing, and then the people from the festival told me maybe we should have, like, after an hour or two, like they're saying, it's incredible you're doing this drawing, and this is happening now in Gaza. And then at some point they say, like the more we were receiving news about, rape, beheaded babies, and everything, it was still the moment where it was going hardcore. So they say maybe we did the wrong choice with this drawing. Maybe we should have chose other drawings that you sent. I say just give it a week and it will be on. It will be again on topic, and it's still until now. Some people send me like tag me in like pass in Ljubljana and discover it, and it's signed and the date is put on it, and they take pictures, and it's still not vandalized until now, which is fantastic. So I wanted to say this was very important for me to say in my introduction that this is how the war started for me. Like before drawing, I was finishing this drawing from a long time ago. So I was already drawing about Gaza when this happened, and and then I wanted to say how I did like everything we said today, like how I started drawing, etc. And I couldn't find a way until one day, for the anecdote, I was totally drunk. It happens sometimes. Sometimes when you're drunk, you have good ideas. It's not always true, unfortunately. but but I remember I was with my partner, and I told her, I said, I think I finally found the way to tell the story, like to write this thing, and she say what, and then I had to write it in just 2 words, so I don't forget the second day, because also this happens. You have a great thing, you're drunk, you wake up, headache, you forget everything, and then that's it. So I wrote on one paper, do not tell the story of 7th of October until now, but that of your birth until the 7th of October. This is what I wrote in also in almost illegible letters, but I could decipherate 2 days later, and then I sat and I wrote it in one go almost. And the idea was in my head, like, to really show that the 7th of October is not the beginning of something. I'm going to say how I arrived to say to draw this at age 49, 48, and where I was born, etc. So I say that I was born in the Civil War, etc. And then I say here that I grew up on the. So I grew up as a Catholic like you, unfortunately, also for me, with also homophobia, with all this plus Islamophobia and Palestinophobia, because they were part of the war, in Lebanon. So for me, they were the worst enemies ever. And for me, like Syrian or Palestinian or Muslim, it was the same, like synonym almost. And they were almost green with antennas, like it was this thing. I never saw it. They were on the other side bombing us, etc. And I say all my story, how I grew up. And then when I start growing up, like the war is finished, I start meeting some, and I start, as you say, discovering art and literature by Palestinian or about Palestine. I start reading, I start understanding. And I was totally pro-Zionist, because I always thought when I was young, like the Zionist project is the only thing that could get us rid of the Palestinians, who are the worst scum in the world. Like this was my. And I say all my way. And when I told you before we started recording, it is afterward written for white people. It was like half joking, but have to say that this story, when I say it in Lebanon, everybody who grew up from my side of the in Beirut, it was cut in two. So for 15 years, those who were in like me with the Christian side, most of us heard all this thing, and this was normal for all of us. So nobody is shocked when I say this. I mean, they are shocked that I say it, because everybody say, no, I was totally, I didn't hate anybody. Now everybody has sudden memory loss about this period. So they are shocked that I dare to say it, but they are not shocked by what I'm saying. But for the white people, I say, because people in the West, sorry to use a lot white people, I don't have a better thing, and I have fantastic white friends all over the world. So yeah, let's just make it clear. But it's a nice shortcut, to we understand what we're talking about. So for white people, they always have the tendency to imagine I'm pro-Palestinian because I'm an Arab. Of course I will be pro-Palestinian. Of course I will defend them. Of course they are always right and Israel is always wrong because I'm an Arab. I'm like them. So it was very important for me to say, hey, I was worse than you. I was ready to grow up and to take weapons and to go kill them, not even say Israel kills them. So it was very important to say that even me, when I saw the fucking facts, like you cannot not be pro-Palestinian. You know what I mean? So even me, with all my hatred and all my the revenge I wanted to take from them, and the fact, the responsibility I put on them for our war, etc., and all my life was fucked by the Palestinians somehow in my head. So if even me, when you show me so much fact, I couldn't but flip. What the fuck are you waiting for? There's a genocide on your phone. How you didn't flip, And this is why I say it's really for the Western reader. It's really to say that this is one of the. And when I say Palestine is the moral compass or the mother of all struggles, it's not to say that they suffer more than Sudan or Congo or the Uyghur in China or wherever, but it is so unjust, like so outrageously unjust, that it represents all the struggles. It represents the struggle not only of Sudan and Congo, but also of queer people, also of black people, also of native people, also of every oppressed people everywhere, of colonized people. Like, it's so outrageously wrong, and everything is so outrageously against them that you cannot not sympathize. Then it's not, I'm not here to say, yeah, the Palestinians are great, and Hamas is great, and the OLP is great. Bastards are in every country in the world, and they are the majority, unfortunately, in every country. So, so it's not like all Palestinians are great, or there is no Israeli that is good. Like, I never go into this very Manichaean American movie kind of thing. Like, do you condemn or do you whatever? I think all this is also a distraction from the problem. There is a genocide happening. We stop it, then we can discuss as much as you want from everything, from flowers in heaven to the way of cooking a good kibbeh. But as long as the genocide is happening, we have to stop it.
And I couldn't agree with you more. Well, I think this was an amazing episode. How do you feel about it, Jake?
Dude, thank you so much. This is awesome.
My pleasure, gentlemen. It was it time. Yeah, you said maybe it will be an hour, maybe more. I said, yeah, no, definitely we want to ride to an hour. But then I warned you from the beginning. When I start talking, you have to stop me at some point. Like, it's maybe one of the rare things I do better than drawing and playing music. It's like just talking about it, talking about it all.
Believe me, you were fantastic. This was a great,
Thank you, Matt.
this was a great
Thank you, guys.
episode. I am gonna give one last plug. One, to buy Gaza in My Phone by Mazen Kerbaj. It is a tremendous book. You can get it on OR Books. Buy it directly from them. They're a great publisher, and thank you, OR Books, for facilitating this interview. And also, one last plug for Cult. Buy our Volume 1, Issue 3. 30% of your purchase will go to a Palestinian relief organization. Mazen, thank you again so much, and we really appreciate it.